I'm hanging in there. I'm calling in to briefly talk about the passage of Florida's minimum wage amendment as someone who's covered it locally and to speak on some of the work that went into Florida's fight for $15 minimum wage.
Yes, please. To me, the fact that that passed, and I believe the vote total for that was more than either Joe Biden, like the vote to pass that was more than Joe Biden or Donald Trump's final vote tally, which means a lot of people bipartisanly voted for that in Florida. And then of course Joe Biden, the Democrat, ends up losing Florida anyway, and it says a lot to me right there. But let me get your local perspective here on this.
Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know, under Florida's Amendment 2, the state minimum wage will be gradually increasing to $15 by 2026, beginning with an increase to $10 next September in 2021. And then it'll increase in $1 increments each year after until reaching $15. And Florida is the 8th state nationwide to get on track towards a $15 minimum wage, along with dozens of other cities across the country. According to the Florida Policy Institute, more than a quarter of Florida's workforce, which is 2.5 million workers, will be seeing this pay increase. And pretty importantly, women of color in the workforce, particularly Black and Latinx women, are expected to see the greatest gain from this. So in addition to raising wages, it's also expected to help reduce pay inequities experienced by people of color and especially women of color in Florida's workforce.
Hell yeah, there's that intersectionality we were talking about before.
Right.
Hell yeah. So as far as what drove this victory, a lot of mainstream news, of course, uplifts Orlando attorney John Morgan, because he was the one who funded efforts to get the amendment on the ballot. He's also done a lot of media about it, saying how it's the moral thing to do, good for business, etc. But arguably more important than his role, in my opinion, is that of Florida's organized labor unions like SEIU, low-wage workers with the Fight for 15 PAC, and political organizations like the Florida Immigrant Coalition, Dream Defenders, and several Florida DSA chapters, including Tampa DSA and Pinellas DSA. So a few months ago, those organizations and more than a dozen others formed a statewide coalition to boost support for Amendment 2. And according to a local DSA organizer I talked to, who was really active in the campaign, the coalition sent a total of 3.1 million texts to Florida voters. And locally, DSA chapters held a lot of sign waving events. Dream Defenders did car caravans, as did Fight for 15. And fast food workers and other low-wage workers across the state were truly the heart and soul in this. McDonald's workers in particular drove the Fight for 15 work, in part because McDonald's sits on the board of an association that poured hundreds of thousands of dollars into an anti-Amendment 2 PAC. And then DSA National also endorsed the amendment after local chapters reached out. And of course, a lot of DSA folks and organizers would like to see a minimum wage above $15, especially by the time we get to 2026. But this is still largely perceived as a victory, granted, as long as it does come to fruition.
Right. I mean, it was definitely a bright spot out of Florida. Overall a bright spot of election night. Yeah. But to see that coming out of Florida, it was really good to see. Yeah, I mean, especially, I know it's not the same thing, but in light of Prop 22 in California passing, which was unfortunate, it was good to see a labor win on the other side of the country. But yeah, thanks for calling in with all that. I really appreciate the call.
I'm going to ask one more question. So as we know, Florida went to Trump, but also voted for a minimum wage increase, which is very progressive. And, not a lot of people know this, but apparently Joe Biden had a $15 minimum wage in his platform. So I have my own theories on this, but where do you think this disconnect is coming from? Or this disparity, I should say.
Well, I mean, so the state Democratic Party is kind of a mess, which I think has been one of the key takeaways from election night here locally. but with the Fight for 15 stuff, I mean, that was driven by labor unions and low-wage workers and like political organizations to the left mostly. So I think their organizing was, I mean, their outreach to people was a lot different than I think some of the outreach from the Democratic Party largely was. I mean, it was pretty disappointing, honestly, to see the outcome of a lot of congressional races here locally and across the state. But the Fight for 15 campaign just really had their shit together, and they made it happen.
And just one other question, because I know that sometimes when they, you have these ballot initiatives, there can be procedural ways that people in government get in the way. Is there any inkling that DeSantis and the rest of Florida's government could try to stymie this?
I think there's definitely a concern. I haven't seen anything definitive yet. I've heard rumors, but I think that's definitely a concern, and I'm definitely concerned, especially with here in Florida. Of course, we have a Republican-controlled legislature, and we didn't win like we thought we would with some of these congressional seats. So, yeah, I think we could be in trouble. I'm not sure.
I wonder if they'll find a way to carve out exceptions.
Like, oh my goodness!
Your business needs to have like more than 1,000 employees for something like that.
Yeah, that was actually one of the concerns I think some people had about even voting for it, because some people were like, why doesn't it have these exceptions? But of course, I don't think it really necessarily needs those exceptions, especially by 2026. I mean, it's past time.
Well, yeah. I found it very encouraging because, as we saw from the victory of Prop 22 in California, it's possible for powerful corporations, if they spend enough money on it, to straight up write the labor law. And it could feel like there's not a lot that average workers can do to fight back. But in this case, they fought and they won. Now, was there a $200 million disinformation campaign working against them? No, there wasn't. But I'm sure there was a lot of money from local business interests and whatnot. And they organized and they empowered themselves and each other, and they won.
You know what I wonder though? I know so much money was spent on Prop 22 from the big tech companies like Uber and Lyft and DoorDash, but I really don't think they were as effective as the simple use of their apps to push notifications to every Californian who had these apps on their phone on how to vote. I think that is so being undercovered here. I don't think this has ever happened before, where a major corporation that is on everybody's, like, is part of an item that people use all the time. Like imagine McDonald's or Burger. I mean, they actually do. I'm sure there a lot of people have the McDonald's and Burger King apps on their phone to get like the special deals or whatever. And I do wonder now, is this the new thing we're going to see? Like next time there's a $15 minimum wage on the ballot in some state, will McDonald's and Burger King, emboldened by what they saw Uber do in California, will they suddenly send out these push notifications to everyone with the McDonald's app on their phone saying how to vote here? And who knows, maybe if you vote in this way, you get a special deal when you click yes on the notification to say that you read it. You know what I mean? Like, I think this is really the dystopian reality we're sort of missing out on in this vote. I think the money spent, that $200 million, ton of money, I think it is nothing compared to how effective those push notifications were. But McKenna, thank you for the call. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for taking my call. I love the show, and I just wanted to say, since I called a few months ago back in May, but since then I just wanted to express my condolences for the passing of Michael Brooks, because he was a really important person to me, and he's definitely missed on the show and just in general as such an important person. But thank you so much for the call, for answering my call.
Right. I've been thinking. I mean, I think about Michael a lot, but especially been thinking of him a lot these past couple of days with the election.
Mm-hmm. I really miss him, especially when I'm like locked in a debate with Sam. Like, where is Nation of Islam Obama when you need him?
Right.
I'm gonna have to learn some voices or something.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah, but I don't think anyone. He was so. It wasn't just how good he got the voice; it was the way his brain worked. That perfectly knew what that fictional version of the character he was portraying would say in that fictional scenario. It was like a really incredible combination, really.